J.R. Lawhorn here from HVACladder.com, the quick tutorial on how to use podcasts on your iPhone or iPad. The first step is to install the Podcasts app if you don't already have it. You swipe down from the top and search at the very top in that search bar for the word podcast, and make sure you put a space after it, and you'll see the Podcasts app in the App Store show up, and then you just click on that. If you've never installed it before, over on the top right-hand side, you'll see an install button. On mine, I have a little cloud that says I've already installed it, and in this case, I just have to re-download it, and then I can open it. And once you open the podcast app, you want to search for the podcast you're looking for. In this case, it's HVAC Ladder. So you type that in at the top in the search bar. Once you type HVAC Ladder in at the top, you'll get search results down below. Now, sometimes you'll get episodes and you'll also get podcasts, and they'll be broken out into sections. If you want to filter it by episodes or podcasts, there's a bar across the top that lets you do that. Or you can just scroll down to the podcast you're looking for, in this case, HVAC Ladder, and click on that podcast. Now, the next screen, it's going to show you all the episodes on the podcast. Can you give the title, the description, and there's a little button up there at the top right that's purple. You can click on that to subscribe to the podcast. In my case, I'm already subscribed, so I can just show you what it looks like to unsubscribe and resubscribe. If you're not sure if you want to subscribe to the podcast or not, you can always listen to an episode from this screen. Now, this doesn't subscribe you to the podcast. It just lets you listen to an episode. If you click on that episode, it'll give you full information about the episode. Now, while you're listening to the podcast, you can take your finger and swipe the little cursor that's on the timeline there back and forth to scrub to a different part of the podcast. If you're trying to figure out whether you want to listen to it or not, or whether you want to subscribe, you can always just kind of shift to the middle. Sometimes that'll skip past some ads in the beginning if you're trying to avoid stuff like that, or just to get a good feel for what the podcast is. There are also really nifty buttons down on the bottom on either side of the pause button that will take you back 15 seconds or will skip forward 15 seconds. I like to use the skip forward 15 seconds if there are ads and I just want to skip past the ads and get back to the content. And I also use the back 15 seconds if there's something I heard but wanted to hear again. And of course, you can hit those multiple times if you need to skip ahead 30 seconds, 45 seconds, whatever. If you look all the way to the left in that same row, right beside the back 15 seconds button, there's a little 1x there. If you click on that 1x, the next thing you'll get is 1.5x. And what that does is it increases the speed that the podcast plays by 50%. And if you hit it again, it'll double the speed that it plays. And if you hit it one more time, it'll cut the speed in half so that you can listen to the podcast at half speed. And then finally, if you hit it one more time, you'll be back to 1x at the normal speed. From the play screen, you can hit that down arrow on the top left-hand corner, and that will hide the play screen. It kind of minimizes it down right near the bottom. It's a little thin strip down near the bottom that it puts it in. And in our case here, we're going back to the search result where we were previewing the episode. There's a little menu bar right below the podcast icon at the very top. It's got details, reviews, and related. If you'd like to submit a review for a podcast, then you want to click on the reviews section there. Now, again, this is in the store. Some people think that once you subscribe to the podcast, you have a similar screen to this when you're subscribed, but it doesn't show this little menu bar. So if you've been subscribed to a podcast and you want to be nice and leave them a review, you'll need to go back to the store and find the podcast in the store and find this page there and leave the review at that point. HVAC Ladder is brand new. There's only about 6 episodes, so it doesn't yet have any reviews. But if you enjoy the content that I'm putting out, feel free to go over to the reviews section and write a review. Now, if you click on that reviews tab, there's a button down at the bottom that says write a review. You'll click on that. It'll take you to the write a review screen where you can set the star rating, write a title, and write your review. If you enjoy the HVAC Ladder podcast, I'd encourage you to go and leave positive feedback here in the review section of iTunes. If you have negative things to say, I'd rather you just email them to me. You can do that by using the contact form on HVACladder.com. And of course, when you finish your review, you're going to hit the send button in the upper right-hand corner, and that will submit the review to Apple. Now, once you're subscribed to a podcast, it's going to show up in your My Podcasts area. To get to that, you're going to click on the My Podcasts icon down at the bottom. As you can see, I've got several podcasts. From the My Podcasts screen, you can click on the podcast you're interested in listening to, and it'll take you to the podcast screen. If you think there's supposed to be a new episode out and you're not seeing it in your podcast app, then you can swipe down. You can kind of touch and drag down from the top, and it will refresh that list of episodes in your My Podcasts app. You can also choose between the unplayed episodes of the podcasts and what's called the podcast feed. Now, the unplayed list is only going to show you the episodes you haven't listened to or the ones you haven't finished listening to. The feed is going to show you all of the episodes. So if you want to go back and listen to an episode more than once, you'll want to click on the feed side and then scroll down to the episode you want to listen to and click on that. There's also a little share button on this screen where you can share the podcast with other people. So if you hit that share button, you'll get the option to send the podcast to someone else as a message in mail, add it to a note. You could tweet it, you can post it on Facebook, and depending on what other apps you have installed on your device, there may be many other ways you could share it. Beside that share icon, there's another icon that looks like a little sprocket, and that's going to bring you to the settings screen just for this podcast. On the settings screen, there's lots of different things you can change, and most of them are pretty self-explanatory. One of the most common things people change is the play settings, which by default is set to newest to oldest. If you'd like to listen to the podcasts from when they were published to the oldest first, then you would want to change that play setting. And you can also change the sort order, newest on top to oldest on top. If you're playing them in oldest to newest, you probably also want to change the sort order. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. This works for any podcast that you'd like to listen to on an iPhone. It doesn't have to be HVAC Ladder. If you have any questions, you can find my email address at hvacladder.com.